Nelly. All right, I've compiled a list of all the racist stuff that I've seen that Biden's done. I guess this is an effort to try to sway some people because, Trump just gets so much negative press. It's hard to find. You almost have to search out positive things about him. Yet in all the negative press and in all the repeated comments that he is a racist, especially in light of this week where the left media has said Trump did not denounce white supremacy. I don't know what you were watching. He said sure when the guy said denounce it. You wanted him to say the words? I hear you. He could have said it a little better. But he has said those exact words before.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists.
So let's go over Biden's record on race. All right, this is a pretty comprehensive list. I'm hoping I've got a couple in here that you've never seen before. Number one, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. August 2020. On the 1 to 5 scale of racism, this is a number 3. Context. Blacks are a monolith. Final consideration. While trying to expand his Latino vote, he made this comment. A supporter could reason this away, though it should not inspire you to confidence in your candidate's intelligence.
The answer is yes, I'm going to engage. Yes. Yes. And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. You go to Florida, you find a very different attitude about immigration in certain places than you do when you're in Arizona. So it's a very different, a very diverse community. The answer is yes, I'm going to engage. Yes. Yes.
Number 2 from 2019. Poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean it, but think how we think about it. We think, no, we're going to dumb it down. They can do anything anybody else can do, given a shot.
Rating 4. 4 is bad, okay? Context. He let some racism and really supremacy through. Final consideration. This was a major fuck-up. Any black supporter of his should take serious issue with this, especially his course correction immediately afterwards, as you saw in that video. He knew he fucked up. Number 3, 2017. Quote, I got hairy legs that turned blonde in the sun. The kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my legs down so it was straight and watch the hair come back up. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping in my lap. And I love kids jumping in my lap.
And by the way, I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
All right, my rating for this one, 3.5. 3.5. Why would you say that wasn't even a racist comment? Well, let me tell you something. His odd speech and pre-dementia babble and everybody being focused on the creepiness of his overall statement kind of overshadowed his racist comment here. He kind of got away with one. Really, when you look at that, what is a roach? Because I'll tell you what, there's 3 things I get out of this. 3 ways I could see this, right? At best, when he says, so I learned about roaches. He's saying all poor people have roaches. Not the biggest deal, also not necessarily true, also not something you need to say out loud. Slightly worse than that, it equates to black people all have roaches. not a good thing to say. And what I really think it is, he's calling black people roaches. This statement was so creepy and so odd and irrelevant, or incoherent. This statement was so creepy and so incoherent that he got away with this with a lot of people. This was at the naming of a community pool. All right, May of 2020. If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. We've seen this, but let's just look at it again.
I have more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
My rating on this is actually a number 1. So it's the lowest score you can get. My context. He was interviewed with Charlemagne the God, and general question about his stance on issues, most notably, will he choose an African-American woman as running mate? My final conclusion is this is one that ain't racist. It's just dumb and condescending. I'd be far more concerned again about his intellect from this kind of shit than anything else. This one's from 1977, number 5. Desegregation, if not done in an orderly way, could result in my children growing up in a racial jungle with tension so high that it's going to explode at some point. Got 2 ratings on this, right? I got a rating of a number 3 for overall racism and a rating of 3.5 for his vote. So I have to give you a little background. This is not a video available for this. This was a series of letters. It looks like there were at least 6, maybe 8 letters that this was taken from. I've got 2 of them here for you on screen. They're hard to find, so I'll just give you the basic background. This was at a Senate Judiciary Committee meeting, or revolving around that. Context was, this was following up his anti-220 program vote that he expressed concern about kids' safety. And final consideration, is he racist or simply a classist? If you're even considering this possibility as a Biden supporter, then you need to forever shut up about Trump being a racist. In relation to like Brown versus the Board of Education. But he opposed the busing system or the aspects of forcing it. The only place I could really even find any coverage on this, I had a hard time finding those letters. And the only place I could really find any coverage of this was on CNN. And they opened that story by saying Biden supporting desegregation but opposing busing. So they put a slant on it right away. But the other factor to consider is that his partner in writing this bill or trying to oppose this bill for the busing was a Mississippi senator named James Eastland, who repeatedly on record called black people an inferior race. So for context, he's got this senator who's an outward racist. You see that it was spun by the media way back when the story originally ran, and it's spun even more now. A couple of times that he's had to address it, saying that, busing does not address institutional racism. Not exactly sure what he means. But one thing I can guarantee you from this statement is he has shown a long record of being against school choice. Something Donald Trump is huge for, and that should be a huge deal to anybody who makes a living in the hood, but they don't want to move out because they don't make enough to go somewhere else that they really like, or because they just feel comfortable there. But they don't want their child to be sentenced to an underperforming or a downright fucking shithole school. Trump's school choice allows you to go to any school you want. So Biden's definitely shown, if nothing else, he ain't going to be down with that. This one's a little long. I'm going to try to not make this tedious, but number 6 is the 94 crime bill. So we've all heard about this bill, ton about this bill. It's been brought up a lot. So here's the stuff in relation to him and to race. It's actually called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. It's 356 pages, $15 billion budget. Here are the notable things that happen. I'm going to do a little pro-gun stuff here too. So there was an assault weapons ban. So that's mag restrictions, stock options, all AR rifles were banned, grip options. And they said that this started because of, I think what they said in the Wikipedia was one of the places I looked, and I think that they tried to say that this came about because of Waco, Texas. I thought that this was because of Columbine. No, Columbine was 99. It was the Brady bill that was passed at the same time. So then that was a handgun restriction thing, which I'm not going to get into it, but obviously not a fan. So moving on from that, though, and I bring that up because he was the author of this bill, one of the prominent authors of this bill. So by voting for him, you can just be goddamn sure that your gun rights will eventually go out the window. I've said this before, right? I think that what he's going to do is potentially get rid of police being able to have guns, except for maybe one officer registered per department, district, whatever. But that'll be the precursor to taking guns away from everybody. This ought to show you he just don't give a fuck. He will take the guns. Additionally, the establishment of the sex offender registry. Now, most people would say that the sex offender registry is a good thing, and I understand completely why anybody would say that, because, sex offenses are a certain kind of vile. However, two things about that. You can get on the sex offender registry for pissing in public. And that is not the same as raping a 5-year-old, so some issue with that. And also, you can get on the sex offender registry for having sex with a 17-year-old when you're 18, which, I'm sorry, not a crime. And to have that follow you around for your whole life, and then the problem with that, having some things that really shouldn't put you on this serious blacklist, is that you are always doxxed forever. So, no, I'm not on the sex offender registry. I can feel for people who are in one of those kinds of positions. So, but that was part of it. More death penalties for what I consider to be arbitrary stuff, such as possession of a firearm as a felon at a federal level, earns you the death penalty. Possession of a firearm as a felon with no violence attached to it earns you the death penalty, along with non-homicide drug offenses. Could get you the fucking death penalty because of Biden's bill. Expansive immigration law. Not really sure how that works. Definitive hate crime laws, which, well, I definitely don't think that people should be hurting people because of race, etc. I just want to throw a fucking First Amendment freedom of speech thing there. You can't tell somebody how they have to talk and act. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe that's what America is now, but then it's no longer free speech. That's all I'm saying. Expansive gang crime related punishment, and this was pre-RICO, so I assume this was the stuff that led up to the RICO predicate. And, also notable, eliminated higher education option for inmates. So when you were in jail previous to this, you got to get to some certain level of whatever privilege, request, get in the queue, whatever it was, but you could get higher learning. So what do we hear from somebody like Biden, especially all the time? Less jails and more opportunity. So you're telling me that you authored this bill and fucking bragged about it a lot because, and one of the things that you did was take away the ability for people while in jail who may have been having a moment of clarity going, man, drugs have fucked me up, or I did some dumb shit, but I don't want to live like that no more. Now you're taking away their opportunity to do anything positive while they're in jail. Nothing except for serve your fucking time, hang out with whatever gang you got to hang out with so that you don't get shivved, and hopefully you'll make it through and then get out, and then you can figure it the fuck out. Seems to be exactly the opposite of the kind of stuff that, like, for example, the BLM would be talking about right now. Supporters of his. It also added 100,000 more police for on-the-ground work. So those are the extra beat cops, pretty much all exclusively in the hood, all over the so, as a black person, especially if you support, the BLM or defund, that should irk you. Okay, additionally, this is where truth in sentencing came in. So no more good behavior, no half sentence, no ability for anything except for what you got in court. So if they gave you 10 years, you were serving 10 years, not a day less. Anybody you know been affected by that? Anybody you know that was a good person and was reformable been affected by that? many more prisons were built to match this new wave of mass incarceration. There were also, from that bill, they made under 18 boot camps, kind of like Scared Straight, but there was stuff for juvenile offenders. I'm not entirely against that, but then again, if the boot camp is just kicking the shit out of somebody and telling them they're worthless, that don't help either. Just saying it's in there. And here's my favorite part of the 94 crime bill that Joe Biden authored. Never once have I heard this brought up by anybody. There was also a stipulation in there that there was to be an annual report from every department in the country about excessive use of force. And that has never been acted on. So that's soak in. And I'm sorry, I just want to say real quick, I'm sorry I brought up the gun thing, but, you know, not only should you know that he's going to go after guns, but this bill and the Brady bill gave a false sense of gun restriction law equals less gun deaths. Because of the way they skewed the statistics and kept track of it, they tried to make it look like the assault weapons ban, which, you know, assault weapons isn't even right. You know, you think AR stands for assault rifle. That's incorrect. That's not what that stands for. But this statistic skewing makes it look like that was a really good idea and brought violence down, and that's not true. It also led to mass incarceration and serious draconian sentencing and law regulation in many areas, including stuff like the 3 strikes. Dude, 3 strikes is rough. What counts? Well, no, you shouldn't murder somebody. There are other things that aren't really that big a deal that can get put in a 3 strike thing, get you put away for life. That's bullshit. But all of that has been addressed by Trump's First Step Act. And if you don't believe me, find a black person who's been helped by it and ask them. All right? So you don't have to hear it from Whitey. Go ask somebody else. I'm serious. Trump, the one that's, in my opinion, more so for black American rights. Here's a quick video of Joe talking about that, and then we'll move on.
I like the idea they keep in jail longer. I'm the guy that wrote the bill requiring federal judges to keep people in jail 100% of the time for which they're sentenced.
For his 44 years in the Senate and then as vice president, Biden was a leading architect of today's criminal justice system.
Biden crime bill, the Biden crime bill, the Biden crime bill. Hell, we've got crime bills coming out our ears. Every major crime bill since 1976, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden.
Number 7 from 2007. You got your first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's storybook, man. Rating 4.2.
Comments he made about another White House hopeful, Senator Barack Obama, recorded by a reporter for the New York Observer.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
I didn't take Senator Biden's comments personally, but obviously they were historically inaccurate. Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson tonight.
It was a gaffe. It was not an intentional racial pejorative statement. It could be interpreted that way, but it's not what they meant.
On the raise the scale. Context. Talking about Obama and his white folks appeal. His appeal to the white masses, to the general population. My final consideration about this, way racist, even supremacist. No way to spin that one, though the mainstream media sure has tried when they've been forced to address it. Number 8 from 2006. You can't go into a Dunkin' Donuts or a 7-Eleven unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking. My rating on this is a 2. Context is, well, he was saying it to be funny. But my context of this is that, you know, the government has been on this program and they wanted more ethnic imports from certain countries. Okay, so if you didn't know this, I guess I can just tell you. This is why so many Middle Eastern and Indian people own gas stations and convenience stores, why they own all the ones in the hood. But now they're almost exclusively either Middle Eastern or Indian. Why? Because the government gave countries that they wanted more people from because they felt they were ethnically underrepresented. I don't know whose plan this was. I'd have to check. But it started to happen in the 80s But in the 80s and the 90s, you could still find plenty of gas stations, convenience stores, and things of this nature that were owned by any average person. They didn't have to be owned, but now it's pretty much exclusive. Well, because they give them these tax breaks. You know, any smart person will tell you, you don't fucking make your personal taxes everything. You put the money back into the business, because that way the government, well, not so much the government anymore, the IRS, which is no longer the government, allows you to play with your money. If you keep it reinvested, then you don't have to pay as much in tax. You'd give a tax loophole, no income tax, 7 years. Man. And then they come over here and they find out that after 6 or 6.5 years, they can will their business to somebody else in their family who has not yet moved over here. You've created a dynasty of wealth like no other. I mean, if everybody could do that, and I'm not a fan of income tax, if everybody could do that, dude, you definitely are rich owning your own business.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
Consideration with that, he's not lying as far as being able to understand people. I think it's kind of common knowledge. I really don't think it's even that big a deal. I mean, just to see Apu from The Simpsons. How long has that been a running joke? And I heard lately they stopped his character because of this racial sensitivity bullshit. Dude, this shit's funny, and it's not wrong. So no, he only gets a 2. He only gets a 2 because he's dumb. Not even because it was really that racist. He's just dumb. And he shouldn't be caught on fucking camera saying dumb shit. Take your own conclusion. Number 9, 1991. You can call me. You just watch the clip.
Chair of the Legislative Committee for the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association. Welcome, Mr. Howe. Ho. Ho. You can call me Bidden if you'd like.
My rating still is a 2. Context, he's reading in names for a role during some Senate testimony, and my final on that is he's trying to be funny, whatever. But it's still, again, number 10. Yeah, there's a couple more numbers still. Number 10, this is sometimes between, it was either 2007 or 2008. And this was, they're going to put you all back in chains. I got the full clip here, and the full clip's actually even worse than just that comment.
Banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
So my rating's a 3.5 on this. The context is, watch the clip. It started with a bank is a, I don't know, racist idiom or imitation, whatever he was doing, and then he segues into this. My final choice is just a poor choice, just bad, just dumb. A dumb thing to get caught saying when you had other options. But, that just comes back to, you can blame it on the year because it was a few years ago, but really that's not. It's just because he doesn't think nothing of it. And I get that, but also at this point, he's been in the Senate for 35 fucking years. And brains, right? I just refer you back to that clip I showed you with Trump denouncing that shit. Now I want you to think, we're on example number 10. I got a few more to go, right? I try to save a couple rare ones for last. But when have you heard Trump say shit like this? Where are those clips? Not imagined slights. Not where you're fucking taking inferences. Where do you actually say shit? Okay, all right, here we go. Number 11, 1973. So we are going back a bit, but this is a dandy. I think the two-party system is good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. End quote. Here you go.
I think there is a change in the attitude. You have leaders in the Senate and leaders in the South like Fritz Hollings from South Carolina, who is a very, very, I think, moral guy, and he has at least takes a moderate position. You have guys like Lawton Chiles in Florida, and you have Republicans alike coming up. It's not confined to a party, and I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy.
That gets a 4.5 out of 5, because he is talking about why Jim Crow is good for black people. And that's about all the context that I have. It was a City Club appearance. I don't know what City Club was, if that was a publication or whatever, but that's what it was. And my final thoughts on that are, woo, dude, yikes. I mean, that's bad. Okay, number 12 from 1994. If Haiti just sunk into the ocean or rose up 300 feet, it really wouldn't matter a whole lot. Context. This is a little... Let me let you watch the video.
Of a paper in the Delaware Valley, asked their reporters to come down and talk to me and said, why is Biden so concerned about Bosnia and not about Haiti? Is it because blacks are involved in Haiti? Blacks are what at stake in Haiti, and in Bosnia they are European whites. There is major arsenals of nuclear weapons where they have long histories of national wars where ethnicity dominates. That is a phenomenal potential consequence of the United States. If Haiti, a god-awful thing to say, if Haiti just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't matter a whole lot in terms of our energy.
My rating for this is a 3.5, and my final on this is I mean, it's bad. It's not the worst thing, but also it definitely is a little racist. All right, and my big finish. Let's see, I got 2 here or 1? Yeah, this is number 13 from 1985. We already have
a nigger mayor. We don't need any more nigger big shots.
Big shots. Yeah. Context, all I can tell you is I found this clip. I've tried to find a little more context, and it's not easy, but I'm going to speculate that this one only gets him a 1 because he's quoting somebody. Not because he actually was dumb enough in 1985 to say that on the Senate floor. It did come from in the Senate, but at any point did he even consider, maybe when quoting that he could have said that a different way? I don't know. Unless, of course, he actually said it himself, then that's really fucking racist. So, my conclusion is this. Big enough deal, if you're a supporter of his, to say, like, fuck, I don't want to vote for him. Well, run me a video of you doing this with Trump shit, where he's been caught on TV or audio or in print saying shit like this, and eliminate examples where you're speculating. So,
gotta have a reason. Trump, there we go. Trump Baker. Students, let's make America great again. 5 votes, Donald Trump. 20.